Welcome to the Friday Habit with Mark Labriola and Benjamin Manley. The Friday Habit is for small business owners, freelancers, and creatives who are ready to take their business to the next level. Join us as we discover how to apply the strategies we learned to grow our businesses, make more money, and live every day like it's Friday. And welcome back to another Friday Habit with Benjamin Manley and Mark Labriola the second. I'm in the house.
What's going on, Mark? I feel like in the intro, I never noticed it before, but do you say Benjamin Manley? I don't think so. I think it's just like that when you hear it a million times. You know, you're like, is it Benjamin or is it Benjamin?
Benjamin. Well, is it Benjamin or Benjamin?
I could add an R just to fix it. Benjamin.
Bengerman.
It'd be unique. It'd be easy to, well, actually probably be harder to Google me, so never mind.
Yeah, that's true. Well, hey, we got a great guest today. Steve Schramm is on the podcast today. He is a lifelong student of business and personal growth and development. He's the founder and CEO of Pro Membership Sites, a boutique web design and digital marketing agency focused on helping creators teach everything they know. So I was like, this guy can share with us his knowledge and help us become better business owners and men and women. So, Steve, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it, and I'm pumped to be here. Have a great conversation. I love your intro. I guess the whole point of the show, right? Sort of live every day like it's Friday. That's why I got into business. So yeah, I'm totally pumped to talk.
Right. Nice. That's awesome. Well, I'd love to hear how you kind of got started on your journey of business, because obviously you're a big proponent of self-development and doing your own thing. But a lot of times people have a hard time making that leap from doing their day job and then starting their own business. And so I'd love if you could kind of maybe share a little bit about that journey for you, because I'm sure it's something that you struggled with as well.
Yeah, 1,000%. So I'll do my best to give you the short version, although I'm known for being a little long-winded. So you just interrupt me.
That's right. We have no time limits on the show. So
that's right. Keep time.
Yes. Perfect. So I never really thought, that I'd be like this. In fact, my uncle was a truck driver. I used to ride with him all the time, and I thought, man, this would be fun, just drive around all the time. And he's like, go get an education,
don't become a truck driver like me.
Right. Don't do what I did, and so maybe not as exciting as I thought. So I just kind of always planned to go to college and kind of do the thing that everybody does, right? And of course, I'm a millennial, and so just all the mindset things that go on when when you grew up at the time that I did, entrepreneurship started to kind of become cool. And anyway, I got into the music scene. I got into the music world. I played a lot of local music. I grew up listening to like bluegrass and Southern gospel music. And a very long story short, I got the opportunity to travel with a bluegrass gospel group, actually full-time, very well-known one. And I worked in their recording studio during the week and got a lot of experience there.
Was it a nitty-gritty dirt band?
It was not. I wish it was. That would be a cool feather in my cap. It was not, though. The nitty-gritty dirt band.
This is funny because we all have this history. Ben was the Jewish dancing group. I was in a Christian rock band. You were in a traveling gospel bluegrass band. So you're amongst good kin.
Oh, amazing. That's fun.
Without the
That's
context,
amazing.
the Jewish traveling dance team, it sounds so hilarious.
I mean,
we don't have to provide any context. Let's just move on.
I was like,
But
do
Mark,
we go into the context?
No, let's not.
Okay.
But Mark, Mark definitely, I would say, has a lot in common with you when it comes to traveling band stuff. So that's cool.
Cool. Yeah.
Ben, you probably toured more than I did.
I don't know.
Worldwide,
Yeah, so I guess working in the studio, ultimately what became one of my best friends, or my best friend, his dad was a business guy, and he was real big in the 80s in the gospel sort of studio scene. And so we still did a lot of work there. And honestly, I just cultivated a love for business. And I ended up in the web design arena because we worked for a recording studio, and when a group comes to record, they need album artwork, they need a website, they need all this other stuff. So that sort of was a natural connection between the musical creative scene and then sort of the graphic and web world creative scene, which a lot of people have those links. But that was it for me. And I thought, I want to start a business of my own doing some of this stuff so that in 5 years from the time that I had set, I could leave my job and go full time. And the main motivation for that was my son. I wanted to, by the time my son was in school, we'd initially planned to homeschool. That didn't end up working out, but that's okay. I had a 5-year goal. And I retired from my day job, if you will. I retired, as Lord willing, as a employee altogether. I retired in January of 2021, and so January, I think, 15th was my last day, and that was a Friday, and that was just 2 weeks after my son had his first day of school. So I accomplished my goal.
Oh, wow.
And here we are.
Amazing.
Yeah. I recorded my first demo in the Gaither studio in Indiana. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Bill Gaither or like any of their ministry or music, but yeah, I recorded our very first EP. We recorded in that studio, and we had like Ronnie Cates, who's the bass player of Petra, come and be our producer. So.
That is awesome. Well, I mean, I don't know if you know, if you know the Gaither world, do you know who Jeff and Sherry Easter are? Does that name ring a bell with you at all?
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, it's that family. So my best friend is their cousin, and Jeff's dad, James.
Yeah, you're probably used to being like, people don't know who I'm talking about,
Yeah,
but I used to grow up.
Drop these names. Yeah,
I grew up listening to like the Cathedral Quartet and stuff like that.
Too cool. Yeah, awesome. We have a lot of connections. We should chat. But anyway, that's the world I grew up in, and I'm still in, actually, in various contexts with the recording stuff and all that. But it led to this web design journey, which is, I guess, why I'm here today. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. What was it that you felt? So you had your family in school. Was there some sort of financial buffer that you had, or did you already have some side hustle work that you were doing that gave you a little bit of stability to take that leap?
Yeah, okay, so this is a great question, and let me just caveat with this. So it's kind of funny because, just for a little inside baseball, I don't really know, right, like why I'm on the podcast today, right, in a sense, right, because I do so many different things that I'm like, well, I don't know what they want from me. So I built my agency. My agency is technically in 2 different buckets right now: Skyview Marketing, which is local focused website design and marketing, and then Pro Membership Sites, which is online memberships and online courses that we build sites out for those clients. But I actually have a whole coaching arm of my business called Subscription Web Design, where I teach web designers how to build up recurring revenue. And so a big part of my story is that I had enough recurring revenue built up from working on the side doing web design while I was doing a full-time job working in IT that I could, I'm not sure that I would say comfortably, but I would say that I could confidently take that leap and then fill the gaps. And, as they say, the rest is history. That was over 3 years ago now. But it was actually the fact of building up recurring revenue, which is why I was able to make that jump, which is something that a lot of people, don't have. So yeah, I built up my business on the side, got enough recurring revenue that I would know how much money is coming in next month at bare minimum. So I knew that my bills were covered. And fortunately, I posted, right? I basically did one Facebook post, letting people know I was leaving my job and what I was doing to go full time. And that brought in, again, that was January, that brought in enough additional work to make me feel really confident in the numbers through July of that year. And then, of course, in between those times, I had more networking and more conversations and more content and all that. So it grew from there. But I had a really good runway to start with because of that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What gave you the insight to to kind of do that on the side? Were you planning to do that someday, or was it just kind of an instinct you followed? And how long were you building that up over time, before you actually were able to quit?
Yeah. So for me, I had experienced that life working, playing music and then working in the recording studio. I had experienced a little bit of what that small business life, control your own schedule, time freedom. I experienced a little bit of what that was like. Because even though I was employed there, it basically felt like my day job was vacation. Right. And it's too long of a story to go into why I was full-time employed, but just I was full-time employed at a law firm from 2014 till 2021, even though I was doing some music stuff in between there too. From 2010 to 2014, I basically did whatever I wanted. I took a year off from college, and that was 16 years ago, right? Kind of thing, right? So I took a 16-year, 1 year off. And, so I had 4 years.
Your gap year was 16 years.
Yes, that's exactly right, and counting, actually, and counting.
Nice.
Yeah. So I had like 4 years of that lifestyle where it was like, yeah, I could actually like drive around town and go wherever I wanted, pretty much do whatever I wanted, sort of thing. And so I always wanted that business, that small business sort of life. But honestly, when I first started doing it, my boss at the law firm where I was doing IT was like, hey, you should start a small business on the side working on computers so that you can get tax write-offs to buy cool stuff. And so I was like, oh, that's actually kind of
that's a really good idea.
Yeah, why not do that? So I did that with the idea of, I'll start working on people's Mac computers because I was a total Apple nerd and I was tired of working on Windows, which I had to do all day. So I tried doing that. And turns out that there wasn't that much of a market for it because the Macs don't break that often, which is why I like them. And so I thought, well, I used to do this web design thing when I worked in the studio. I wonder if I could try resurrecting that. And then real quick, and I'll shut up here, but I decided one of the things that my mentor in the studio, Russell, one of the things that he taught me was to build, he used an old school word, he called it residual income. Nowadays, we mostly call this recurring revenue. And the idea being is that find a customer who will not just pay you once, but will pay you over and over again. So he had this genius model. You'll appreciate this, Mark, in the studio where when a band came to record, we would give them, because we did the CD duplication and the artwork in-house, we would give them enough CDs to where if they sold them to family, friends, church members, or whatever, they could make back the entire investment of the recording session. So if we were to charge $1,500 for the session, we would give them 100 CDs to where they could sell them for $15 a piece. And if they would put that money back, and his deal was, if you came back every year, I'll never go up on the price, just sell the CDs every time. And you can come back every year and do a new album. So I took that thinking, and I'd like to think I was one of the first to apply that thinking to web design services. I mean, it's all the rage now, but I was doing this in 2015 when you couldn't just go YouTube, and find a guru who was doing this. And that's how and why I decided to build my business, shift into web design, and then go from there. And it worked. I mean, I found people who would pay me monthly for a website, and I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the breakthroughs for me in my business as well. It was going from project work to retainer work, finding ways to work with people on a consistent basis, finding things that would bring value to them and then that they needed on a consistent basis, and then just charge them a retainer opposed to trying to just run for that project, right? It was like, okay, it's actually better for my business to maybe do a project over a year period that's $35,000, $40,000 opposed to just getting one project for $35,000 like in 1 month and then not have anything for several months. It was, at least for me, I think as a creative, it was easier for me to balance my budget, have more confidence with hiring employees and growing the business in that way. So,
Yeah, that's right. And it's so cool because, for me, I got obsessed with that idea of getting paid like I was working a day job, but not actually working a day job, right? So I scaled up the team sooner than a lot of other people probably would have. Started creating systems and processes more than that, and honestly, it even led to the kind of clients that I work with now. Like I mostly work with online course creators, people with membership sites and stuff like that. I guess it's about half and half, honestly, because I became so obsessed with this membership income model, subscription income model. And so we've gotten the chance to build some really cool like learning management sites and membership areas for people. And, so that whole one little thing about build recurring revenue has kind of just been this theme that has gone into all the different areas of my business life and made a big difference.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think if someone can figure that out, it will just serve them so well. And a lot of people are trying to figure that out. They're trying to figure out, okay, how do I take my knowledge and the things I know and I'm good at, and how do I turn that into something that I can charge for and make a living off of? And so what are some of the things that you walk people through, or how do you try to pull those things out of them to understand the way that they can monetize their knowledge?
Yeah, that's a good question. So let me caveat with the fact that I don't necessarily do what some others do. Like I don't necessarily try to get people to start a membership site or something like that. That would be my caveat, is I mostly work with people who have already sort of decided that that is what they want to do. And so, yeah, we're the website, we're the solution on the back end for actually building that. But I mean,
well, and that's what we do too. I mean, at Brand Viva, that's how we are. It's like, everyone knows they need to make an online course. Everyone knows that they need to have this content, but they don't know how to execute on that. And so usually it's them coming to us and saying, okay, great, let's help you maybe organize your ideas and then put them together and create that video content that you need to go onto a web page or a site or whatever that is. So.
Yeah, no, fair enough, and that's great. To this point, obviously, I have plenty of opinions about that. I'm a total marketing nerd, so we go into those things as well. But right, as far as the company goes, we mostly focus on the execution of it and laying it out there. But a lot of what I actually do though is when people come to me and say, hey, I'm trapped in this feast or famine cycle. I can't, it's like from the web standpoint, right? It's like I can't get any clients. I have no idea what I'm doing. That's where I can come in. That's where I do most of my actual coaching and consulting work, is saying, okay, let's take what you've got. Let's build a unique to you, niche based subscription web design model and go from there. So that's where my coaching work falls. But yeah, on the client services side, we do a little bit of everything and enjoy the heck out of it. So
I'd love to dive into some practical stuff, Steve, on the subscription side of things, if you don't mind me asking. I'll give you a little context too. So I have a web design agency called Knapsack, and we do Squarespace websites is what we specialize in. Our kind of thing that we've been doing for the last few years, kind of innovation that we, I guess, kind of helped pioneer in the last maybe 8 to 10 years, is like people call it now like VIP day, design day, things like that, where you like do a day with a client and you do a really quick web design turnaround kind of thing. So we started doing that probably about 8 or so years ago. And we
Longer
weren't seeing
than
anybody
that,
else.
dude, you've been doing it at least since 2013.
Yeah, that's true. I think, that's true. It was probably more like 2013, 2014.
Because I met you, and you had already been around for like a year or so, I think.
That's true.
I
it
met
was
you in
probably
2014. So.
Yeah. So I guess we were doing it even further back. But basically, we had kind of, I think what allowed that was the fact that we were using some DIY website builders like Squarespace, where it's like, hey, we can literally live build this so fast that we can do live sessions with clients. So that's kind of where our innovation was, and that was really good for us. So we've always focused on creating efficiencies in the business, just creating how efficient can we prep beforehand and help the client prep their stuff, and how can we take all that stuff and run with it and just be super efficient with our time, train our designers around this, have really rock solid processes. So that's where I focused a lot of my time for the first part of my business. Then the last few years, I've been like, all right, how do we build up some recurring revenue? Because we're getting great cash flow, lots of stuff coming through. Thankfully, we have really solid lead sources that we're getting a lot of organic leads coming in and stuff. But it's always in the back of my mind, like, hey, we should probably be a little more solid on the recurring revenue side so that we're not always having to chase the next sale, right? So one of the things that we did was we implemented a few different things, like we added a small subscription service on the back end of our sale. So we still maybe sell a website for $5-10K, and then we add on a $100 recurring subscription after that for small support things. Part of that strategy is keeping that client around so that later on they're like, hey, I need another website. They're already engaged with us. So in a way, it's kind of encouraging the recurring revenue, even though it's not technically a recurring model. So that's another thing we've done. But, I've also started another business on the side that is a fully recurring revenue. And that one I'm building up slowly on the side because I don't want to switch my main company from the cash flow and be like, hey, all my cash flow is cut off instantly and now it has to be only recurring because I have employees, I have a team, So if I had done it from the beginning, I think it's smart to do recurring from the beginning. I think it's difficult to switch an existing large business to recurring cold turkey. I think maybe it could be stair-step strategically or something like that. But anyways, I just want to give you that context for this conversation because I am working on building a side business that is recurring web design. So I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on lots of things. One of my first questions is like the sales process, like what objections do you get selling a recurring revenue type service versus a one-time sale with web design? Do you get any objections or do you think it's easier to sell a recurring subscription?
So I think it's way easier to sell. In fact, you might appreciate this. I get more objections from fellow web designers who are skeptical than I do from people who, than I do pushback. In fact, I think I could go on record, and and full disclosure, right? I mean, we're not a volume agency, right? We don't like onboard 10 new clients a month and like all this stuff like some people do. Like that's just not our model, not our agency, not our speed. Frankly, like we move a lot slower than that. That caveat aside, I think I can confidently say that I don't know that I have ever, in the last 8 years now, specifically got pushback on paying monthly versus we'd rather pay whatever. And I cannot tell you the amount of people, again, it's web designers, who tend to object or have all these questions about, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? Well, in my experience, like people are like, well, you can only sell subscription web design, right? The recurring model, you can only use that with clients who can't afford to pay for a full on, whatever, 5, 10, 15K website build. And I'm like, oh, well, that's odd because I have clients all across the spectrum. And then some are like, well, you can only do this with home services business. And I'm like, well, that's odd because I have large medical associations. And so how do you account for that? And or they say something like, oh, well, you can only do this if you build a site with using templates. And I say, oh, well, that's odd because from the very first day, we've actually done it custom. So I guess what happened is I just invented the wrong thing. I don't know, but it's the thing that's been working for us for many years now, is that we don't just niche down to home services businesses. We do custom WordPress websites from the very beginning. And our pricing is all over based on the needs of the client and the needs of the project. I mean, we have, as low for a website alone. Now we do marketing services too that go beyond this. For a website alone, we have some customers right now that are paying $59 a month, like one, and then we have one on the complete other end who's paying $12.75 per month for just a website. So I like to think that my model has sort of shattered all of these various little limitations that a lot of times the web designers will want to put on it. I think you can sell just about anything on a subscription model if you sell it correctly. And so let me give you something on that. I am a big proponent of story selling, right? Telling stories to get my sales message across. And most people will say that they are. But again, I want to specifically say, okay, if there's a point that you're trying to make with a client, there's a place for a logical argument. But how could you make that same argument as a story. So for me, the one that always just sort of cinches it is I tell what I call my pastor porn story. And the short version is that back when we were designing websites with me and my buddy under the Studios sort of brand, we built a website for a pastor, a church out in Virginia. Great church, growing church. Lots of visits to their website on a regular basis. But this was the old days of WordPress where you didn't even charge for a maintenance plan or anything. You know, you charged $500 maybe for the website and you handed over the keys. And that's what we did. And guess what? The website got redirected to a porn site and was blacklisted by Google. And so that leads me into telling why I charge a recurring base for the website. I say, look, I don't want that same thing to happen to you. Now, some people have tried to alleviate that by selling a large number up front and then a subscription service on the back end. I say the problem with that is that really what you're buying there is insurance. Right, you're buying maintenance and insurance, and nobody really likes to pay for that stuff. So what we did is we created a model that sits in the middle where we have a minimum engagement, it's 18 months, but if you keep paying beyond the 18 months, every 36 months, we actually rebuild you the website. We're always in contact with you. You always have a great, up-to-date, performing quickly, and it looks fantastic website for your business for as long as you're in business and keep paying us. So I always link it to a story, and that helps make the sale, especially when the story has a specific, reference to the problem that I'm trying to address in the business.
That's awesome. You led right into my next question, which was I was curious about your contract minimum engagement type thing, as well as if you included refreshes. Because my thought was with my business, I was thinking about a minimum engagement of 18 months. I'm considering anywhere between 1 year and 2 years as a minimum engagement. And then I was also thinking after 2 years, maybe 3 years, I was thinking would be an optional redesign. So, hey, if you stick around this long, you unlock a redesign and we can completely refresh your site. Because I think it's a great value. It's an incentive to stay on and that type of thing. Would you recommend, have you experimented with different time frames, and what experience have you had with that, and what made you land on the 18 months minimum engagement? And sorry, one more question around that. Is it contractually obligated to finish paying, or is it more like you lose your site if you walk away before then, and can they keep it after that? How do those details work?
Yeah, perfect. Love it. So here's why I landed on 18 months. Because it wasn't a year and it wasn't 24 months. Real technical, I know. I know a lot of people right now are doing the 24-month minimum commitment thing. And there are a lot of people, including some of my students, who are even starting to toy around with no contract at all. So I'll try to answer all these questions kind of together.
Yeah.
For us, it is an 18-month minimum contractual arrangement. If you want to leave at month 6, that's fine, but you are going to pay for the other 12 months as well. As part of that. So if you want to take the website and leave, you can do that. We decided not to do the 1 year thing, especially like if a customer is already like down the process with us, right, and they're sort of on board with it, and they just, for their accounting cycles, they'd rather do it annually or something like that. I'm totally fine with that. But to use the annual subscription as sort of a baseline, is just, I don't know, I call it against the subscription mindset, because it really invites that reconsideration, right? That, oh, it's been a year. Do I really want to pay for this for like another year versus a monthly thing you're just going to pay for every month and sort of, I don't want to say forget about it, because I'm not banking on the fact that they're forgetting about us. I mean, we want to be very present and communicative, more so that we just want to normalize it. Oh, it's totally normal to see them take this money out of my bank account every month. And that's a cost of doing business versus having to renew every year. And a 24-month commitment is just a long time. That might turn some people away who maybe wouldn't be turned away by the 18-month thing. And an important thing I'll say on that, though, is we don't send them an email with party hats. Hey, you've reached your 18 months. Hope you'll stick around. We don't do that, right? It's in our contract that, hey, month 19, guess what? You're going to get a bill. You have to intentionally go out of your way to cancel with us if you'd like to. But hey, if you stick around, we are going to redesign that site for you when you want it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
What
Do you
happens if they-
proactively reach out for the redesign part of things? Do you say, hey guys, your site's looking a little bit like, hey, we should probably revisit this at some point, like at the 36 months or after that? Do you proactively reach out to them at some point to start that?
So what's interesting is I've really never had to. Just being honest, like we stay in such contact with our customers that like it almost just sort of arises naturally. And what's really crazy is they seem to ask for the redesign pretty much right when I would be reaching out proactively anyway to say, hey, let's start getting ready for this. So they're kind of used to it, and the timeline really just seems to like work out. So I think I nailed that.
Have you had anyone like go out of business, and now you built them this beautiful site that maybe would have cost 10 grand or something like that, and then within 6 months, and they're paying their $300 a month subscription, and then all of a sudden they go out of business, and now it's like, oh, now what do I do?
Yeah, this is a good question too. I have had that happen exactly one time, and the circumstances of the project were such that I did not require her to fulfill the obligation. I let her just cut the website off. I was totally within my rights to ask for that additional money. In this case, you know, she was a confused young entrepreneur trying to figure out what she wanted to do with her life and couldn't decide between, you know, wellness coaching or like day trading or some other stuff with Instagram. And I thought, you know, I didn't have that many. In that case, we did use a template to start with the project. I've been very good at finding labor that is good and also affordable. And so I had made money on the project, and I just really didn't feel right, frankly, about asking her to finish that out since she wasn't even going to be offering these services anymore. So I did, in that case, just let it go. But I didn't experience a loss or any financially or otherwise because of it. So,
with the with your contracts, I guess one thing I'm considering, and you mentioned maybe some of your students are playing with this as well, is not having a contract, but basically like, hey, after 18 months, you can fully take the site and walk away with it, and you own it. You can self-manage at that point. But before 18 months, we own it. So if you walk away before 18 months, it's kind of like an incentive of like, hey, I mean, you just don't completely own it yourself until that point. Is that something you would recommend? Have you seen other people doing that? I like the idea partially. I mean, my thought is like it reduces some risk. I'm very confident in my ability to make them happy. So it's like reduce a little upfront risk for them. But yeah, I'm just curious if you've seen that work or not, and what you'd recommend there.
It's a unique solution. You know, I've never tried that myself. I haven't experienced anyone doing that exact thing either, though. And I think that's really interesting because, like, I know there's some cases where, so I call mine a lease to own model. In my stuff, in my course and all that, I teach like 5 different models that I've seen. And
okay.
The one model that I do and teach is an 18-month, right? I call it lease to own. And there's another one in there that a friend of mine, her agency, they were the first ones that I saw do this. And it's more like a traditional lease with a buyout option. So theirs is yearly based. And what they do is at the end of a year, you can either cut the website off or you can continue paying and then they'll do a design refresh then. Or you can buy the website out. And I want to say the buyout fee is $8.99. So it doesn't matter if you paid for the website for 1 year or for 2 years or for 3 years. If at any point you want to take that site with you, you got to pay $8.99. Probably the closest thing that I've seen to that. I mean, obviously I know it's quite different. But yeah, I don't know. I quite like this idea of maybe, hey, like if you stick around for 18 months, at that point after that, you're free to go and free to keep it. I got to say, actually, when you say that, now that I'm thinking about it and saying it out loud, I honestly think that's just what I do.
That's what I was going to say. It sounds like it's all about like the wording. And that's what I'm curious about in your sales meetings, because I have a friend that does something similar, and he almost calls it like a payment plan, which I don't think I want to call it a payment plan, because that implies that when you pay it off, then it's like, oh, I paid it off. Why would I keep paying you? I'm not sure 100%. I could be misrepresenting him, but I remember when we discussed it together, he mentioned it that way. And I'm curious if he sells it that way, because that's what I was wondering too, is what exact wording do you use? Because I think this is really, it has a lot to do with psychology, like selling the subscription, because it's like, is it a subscription? Is this a payment plan? Is this a lease to own? Is it something else? Because what I want them to see me as their, this company is like, hey, I am the guy, or this is the company that's going to make sure your website is always looking good. You can comment anytime to let us know if you want to make an update. When it starts getting out the date, we're going to proactively be like, hey, let's make this better so you don't have to worry about it. Like, it's basically you pay us and your website's always good. So how do you talk about that when you're selling?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I'll say that actually the language that I use a lot of times is just, I'm upfront with them, right? I find that honesty and confidence are like the two words that I like. If I had a mantra that I recite to myself before every sales meeting, it's look, just be honest and be confident. Those two things have always won the day for me. And so I'll be very honest and even share my personality by saying something like, look, client, honestly, I just want you to pay me forever. And if you pay me forever, then you will just always have a fantastic website, right? I'm very upfront about that. It's a really good thought with the 18-month thing. That's exactly what I do. Is they have to, if they want to buy it out, to make, if they want to leave it month 14, then they have to buy out to make up for the 18. But if they pay me through 18 months, at month 19, I will perfectly happy to let them go. They've satisfied that minimum commitment. But for sticking around, I want to honor that commitment. And so every 36 months is why we do the redesign. Now, the language I use is very important. I don't sell to clients a subscription website or a website subscription. Now, I have seen some people doing this. What they'll have is they'll have their primary agency site, and then on the side, they'll build like a niche sort of subscription-based site. And they're treating this as, hey, can't afford my rates? Go over here to my sister company and you can get a low-cost subscription-based website. Okay. I feel like that works in that context, but I don't want to take the risk of devaluing what we offer because there's no reason to devalue what we offer. It's a fantastic custom website that we get them just like they would pay 5, 10, or 15K for. So I use the terminology of a managed website. That's what I've chosen. So when I'm talking about what I do with other web designers, I call it subscription web design because that's what it is. With clients, it's a managed website. It's a website that we manage for them. I even avoid the word maintain. I don't want people to think that what we're trying to do is it's like build them a house and then keep it from falling down. Not that at all. I want them to think about their website like a living organism, right? It has to respond to the whims of the day. When the people at Google or at Facebook wake up on the wrong side of the bed and they make a change that drastically affects their website, people like us have to be there to help them out. And so a website needs to be managed, not maintained. So we use that language, and that fits naturally with the recurring income.
I love that. That's like the perfect word that I've been searching for, is like a managed website, not maintained. Because I agree, maintain sounds reactive and not proactive, and that's what I want to change the perception around. Because I don't promise a lot of people how proactive we're going to be, but I try to pleasantly surprise them that we're being proactive. And so after they've been a subscriber, I was reading this book for like the third time, I think, but Automatic Customer, I think it's by John Warlow. He talks about, And so like in that book, he talks about there's like a 90-day period after getting a subscriber where it's like, hey, we need to wow them for 90 days. It's kind of like a honeymoon phase or something, I think he calls it. It's like, that is the time when somebody first subscribes. That's the time when people are going to be first questioning their decision. Like, should I have signed up with them? Did I make the right decision? And so you need to be there proactively adding value in that first 90 days, making sure that they're seeing that you're putting it forth effort. And it's interesting because he talks about after that point, you almost don't want to check in quite as often because you can become annoying if you're like doing it all the time, but you can kind of not fade off entirely, still be proactive. Like I feel like I love your philosophy because you're saying, you're like, hey, we're not trying to hide from our customers and be like, oh, I hope you forget, so you'll stay on a subscription. Like, no, it's about how do you keep adding more value over time so that they are grateful and like, man, I am so glad that Steve is looking out for my site and making sure that what I need done is being done proactively. And it's like awesome feeling knowing somebody is like worrying about that for you. So anyway, do you resonate with that? Like, what's your strategy with like onboarding a new customer and then like long-term staying in touch with them?
So I'm so glad you said that because yes, I've read that book at least once, maybe twice. And, but the 90-day thing is fascinating. because I think we're doing this by accident. So my wheels were just totally like spinning on that. A lot of people who are getting into the subscription thing, right, are sort of focused on, oh, it takes 5 hours to set it up. Well, remember, we are not, okay? So we do custom WordPress websites. You're working with us straight for the first 60 to 90 days to do a build. So we have every week a chance. I mean, at least once a week is the minimum that I allow my team to be in contact with customers. We have a chance to wow them every single week throughout the process. And then naturally, as we move into what I call the care phase of the project, which is that month 4 through month 18 and on to infinity, that's where it does become more hands-off. We're still proactive when stuff happens, or if we need to send them analytics, or like we're noticing something, we still have proactive things that we do, of course, in the, to use the M word, maintaining of the website. We absolutely do that. But yeah, just naturally the first 60 to 90 days, man, we have hundreds of chances to wow our clients and have a great experience. And then after that, it just kind of naturally tapers off. So I totally resonate with it. I think, depending on, you haven't really shared more of the details of how you're delivering on the subscription service. So, I mean, you may have to use another M word, manufacture some moments for a good customer experience in that first 60 to 90 days. But yeah, we're just doing it naturally. So of course, I totally agree with it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think so far what I've done is probably about the first 30 days we'll get the site live. But I also, as I'm working on the project, I'm thinking, hey, this is phase 1. We're going to go live. I mean, for example, actually, Mark has worked with me on a project. And so we built his website, got it live. But then in the back of my head, I'm like, we really need to add a portfolio to this site, because that's going to be a game changer for like people staying on the website for longer, for SEO long term. We really should have this. People, when they go to hire a video production company, want to see a lot of examples. So we launched with a very simple few examples on the homepage. But I'm like, you know what? I'm going to work on this, after we launch. And so then I think it was probably about 30 days after we launched, I reached out to Mark and to Janie over at Brand BV, like, hey guys, can you give me a list of all the videos that you have on Vimeo that you think are portfolio worthy? They give them to me, and then I like proactively working on those, and then send them an update. Hey guys, it's up here. Here's how it's looking. And so like I always have a running list of ideas that are like, I'm going to reach out about this at a certain point and be like, hey guys, here's a new thing we could work on. So when it comes to me, I can just jot it down in that client's notes and then kind of make sure that I reach out to them. I haven't systemized any reminders yet, which I would like to do, some type of touch point reminder if it's been X amount of time before I've talked to someone. Right now, I don't have enough clients where I have to do that, but I think I would like to do that to where it's like, hey, if I haven't talked to them in a while, I'm not going to be like, hey, need anything? Like, nobody wants that. But if I can go to look at their site and do that. And my other thought is like, so since we use Squarespace, we get, I get like a weekly update from Squarespace with new features they've launched. And so what my current process is when I get that email, I look through my list of clients and I kind of browse through their site and look for opportunities to use that new feature that Squarespace just launched. So I'm basically keeping them updated with whatever the newest feature is that Squarespace launches. So anyway, that's like one kind of trigger that can help me stay a little proactive. But do you guys have like a pre-planned process for the care phase, or is it more tailored to every client?
Yeah, so a little bit of both. So I mean, it's definitely, so for example, there are some sites where like, with WordPress, you can basically like run auto update on and hardly ever have to touch them. Right. Then there are some sites, especially the high availability sites, membership sites, lots of moving parts where, man, there's a whole process. We need to create a staging site. We test it on the staging site. We have the customer test it live, or test the staging site. And then we make the updates live, and then they have to test it live. And right. So you have to do all of that. So it's a little bit more elaborate for some and easier for others. Something that from the very beginning I said that I was going to do and then never consistently did, and then I'm trying to resurrect, is this idea of quarterly strategy calls of some sort. And I got to say, I've seen some people have tremendous success with this because it keeps you top of mind. For us, the way that we structure it, this might be a question that comes up. we allow 1 hour per month of on-site updates. So it's not unlimited for us. And then we charge a discounted hourly rate for everything that goes beyond that hour. So those strategy calls are the perfect opportunity to lead to upsells and more business and actually like selling them on some new feature. And again, there may be some contexts like in Squarespace, maybe it just makes sense. If it's flipping a button, then okay, that's a value add. If it's adding a portfolio, to use that example, on WordPress at least, I might propose that, or the client might ask about that in a strategy call. And it's like, okay, that's probably going to take like 5 hours to do. Do you want to stretch that out over the next few months? Or do you want to go ahead and knock it out this month and we'll just bill you for the overage? And so it's a good opportunity to upsell even to current customers that you already have. So I think quarterly strategy calls, monthly is a little bit too much. Biannually might be a little bit too long. So quarterly is kind of like a sweet spot where there's enough changes going on within a business every quarter to like make sure that their web strategy is accurately reflecting of what's going on in their mind and in the rest of their business. And that can act itself as a great trigger. So I think I called them quarterly challenge calls or something like that when I wanted to originally do this. The idea of just saying like, hey, what challenges are you facing right now? How can our business help you overcome them? And I think that's a great idea. So
yeah, I love that idea. I had something similar written down on my highest end package that I was working on. I was thinking, okay, that'd be cool for like certain customers. And then I thought like, man, like if I started thinking about scale, my thought was my plan is to work up to 50 customers. I actually want to ask you about that and your thoughts on scaling in how many are possible to manage by one person. I'm sure it varies, but my thought was like, okay, any decision that I promise to 50 people is multiplied by 50. So I think like if I promise 4 meetings a year times 50, I just by making one promise in a sales meeting to hope to maybe get a customer or improve one thing, I just made myself 200 more meetings per year. And that's like a lot of meetings. That's at least one meeting, like almost not quite one meeting per day, but I'm like, man, that's just quarterly strategy calls. Like that's insane. So I agree with the sentiment, and I think it probably depends on how many people you have, all that kind of stuff. So, but I like the idea of it. And I thought of something similar because I think having the face-to-face time is great. And I think also, like you said, opportunity to upsell, but I think sometimes business owners don't think about reaching out to you about a change in their business. So that's kind of the problem I feel like that also helps solve, is that you're actually getting to know what's going on in their business so that you can react and evolve the website to reflect it, which I think is really smart.
And I mean, of course you can send a newsletter, and you probably should, right? I mean, send some sort of a monthly newsletter, or like send them new blog posts that you write or something, so that they're reminded, oh, hey, I have this thing. Let me get in contact, with Ben about this.
Right.
But man, there's nothing like the personal contact, and that's where man, having account managers to help spread that load, in this world, in today's world, the amount of things that you can do that don't scale, right? Doing the thing that doesn't scale, they say, the phone calls, the personal outreach, things like that. Those are the things that often win over business owners.
That's true. So I experienced the same. I mean, so I use this app called Bonjoro. It's like a direct video messaging app. And sometimes when we get like a lead in from like a free download on our website, and from that I have a trigger and I just send a quick video to somebody that downloaded a free lead generator, and it's personal video to them, they're blown away. I get like a 50% response rate of people just being like, whoa, you just sent me a video from downloading this PDF? That's crazy. And so, I mean, I resonate with that. I think you're 100% right. And just to kind of go with that same thought is that one of my latest clients on the subscription side, they're super busy. So I knew that they weren't going to be able to sit down and get me all the answers I need. And so I just called them on the phone like, hey, let's just talk through this. Don't worry about filling out that form. I'm just going to fill it out for you. Let me just ask you the questions. And then whenever I needed to check in with him, I would just send him a personal video where like I'm talking to my phone. I'm like, hey man, how's it going? Check it out. This is what I'm working on. I'll switch the camera around and show him like the website. Like, I think it's looking really cool. Hey, are you free to touch base today or tomorrow? And I literally text him a video, and it's totally different than being like, oh, he sent me an email about setting up a business meeting. So like, I like that idea too. And I'm actually going to ask you about communication strategy. Do you use email? Do you use texting? Like how do you
keep track? I was thinking like that, like what kind of software you use, project management tools in order to keep track of everybody and manage everything.
How much time did you say we have? Because I could go all day on this one. No, so listen, I love this. So communication is one of the biggest problems in web design. It just is, right? The amount of new clients that I talk to who were ghosted by their previous provider, they literally just stopped answering the phone or the email. It's wild. It's crazy. I know. I'm convinced that we are still in business today because we actually answer our emails and call you on the phone.
100%.
Well, and what's crazy about that is I even have my focus modes on my phone set up to where I don't answer calls. And even that, we still do such a better job of communicating, even though I don't answer calls during the day. It's really just wild. All right, so this one always gets met with mixed reviews and mixed reactions. But I'll tell you what, I am a stickler on communication. And the tool that we practically force our clients to use is actually Basecamp. And Basecamp's an old dog, been around for a while. I know there's a lot of people, when I say that, they shudder because it's like, oh, it's not designed well.
Basecamp is still around?
Right, Basecamp is still around. Yeah, I mean, they were like the first to do it, right? But look, the reality is I am in just agreement philosophically with their business owners, Jason Fried and David Heinemeier Hansen.
Totally.
And they developed opinionated software that agrees with how they do business. And I'm like, this is great because I want to do business this way. So most of our communication is asynchronous. We move out of email as quick as possible with customers. I find that customers tend to love interacting with us on Basecamp because it's so easy to find what you need now. And look, the reality is, perfect example. So we just had a website. We were switching hosting companies, and I switched a website. I will not make this mistake in the future, but anyway, I switched a website mid-development from the current development host to the new development host. We had a catastrophic failure at the new host, and we lost roughly 5 hours worth of changes. It could have been worse. We lost roughly 5 hours worth of changes. Now, going back and redoing those changes, who knows how long it would have taken if we'd had to then not only just do the changes because they came in over the course of a couple weeks of time. We'd have to dig through which email thread was where. We'd have to pull things from 18 different places. And if you're an agency who's mostly communicating over Zoom or something, I mean, now thank God we have these AI companions and stuff. But it wasn't 6 months ago that we didn't have any of that stuff.
Right. Totally.
So you have no record of conversations like that. Every single thing that we needed to do was in Basecamp. The changes are already done. They were done overnight. The 2 weeks worth of changes that we had to redo were done overnight. My guy's in the Philippines, so while I went to sleep that night after I gave him the go ahead to move forward, he made the changes. By the time I woke up the next morning, they were done. And the reality is, it's because it was right there in context in Basecamp. So
Love it.
we call this a core value or whatever, but radical over communication is the language that we use. Radical over communication, and this is what we try to instill with our clients. And so let me just say a few things about that. Obviously, Basecamp makes it easy to facilitate that conversation. We tell people that we actually back up. You know, a lot of people say, oh, well, we communicate well, or we always answer the phone. Well, we back it up with our business model, right? You pay us monthly. And so we're going to have a big problem with you paying us monthly and then us not actually being in contact with you. So we say we're going to be there, and we actually are, because if not, we know that you're just going to stop paying us, and we would expect you to. So it's a core part of our company. And in fact, I hire based on it. I will hire a less skilled designer if they're a better communicator, because I want them to be able to write in long form, communicate well, and because I let them talk with clients, and I try to be fairly hands off once the project gets going, because I slow things down these days. So my team does a better job than I do. And that's the goal, is to hire great communicators and to work communication into the fabric of the business. And it just makes it all so much better.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So it sounds to me too, the way that you've grown your business over the past years is through kind of contractors instead of trying to hire like W-2 employees. And so how did you make that decision as far as, because one of the things I've experienced, I think, throughout the years is that we bring on contractors and then the quality of their work maybe is poor, or like the communication part, right, is poor. And now we're looking bad as an agency because what we're trying to deliver to our client is sub our brand quality. And so it's just kind of been a struggle. How have you found a good rhythm with building your business off of contractors?
Oh yeah, no, great question. So, for me, I guess the reason for originally making the decision is, well, I'll start with the fact that I fundamentally desired to have a remote team. I didn't want to work in an office, so I never wanted to have an office. Build some sort of local empire or whatever. That mixed with the fact that, again, the time in which I grew up and like the world that I was in, which is sort of like that online business membership space, there was all this talk about virtual assistants, right? So, companies like it used to be Odesk, but like Upwork and Fiverr, I was coming into business maturity when these companies were really starting to hit their stride.
Right.
And so through that, I actually just learned a lot about Filipino culture. And Filipinos they're very similar in terms of like worldview. To me, they speak English is their primary language that they learn because there are so many dialects in their own language that the only thing that they can communicate consistently on with each other is English. Their main export is virtual assistants, so there's like stringent laws in their community. And in their country and the islands there, you'll get punished more harshly for like doing wrong by your overseas employer than even like for violating local laws because it's their number one export. So, like I said, they speak good English, and so there's a lot of reasons why. Oh, well, and it's really affordable, right? It's like super duper
Right.
affordable, and so there's a lot of reasons why I set my sights kind of on working with Filipinos. Now, right now on the team, it's me and my wife, 4 Filipinos, a wonderful woman living in Mexico, and then a Dutch guy who lives with his wife in Brazil, right? So that's kind of the span of the team. We're literally a global operation. And the answer is, as far as why not W-2s, is, well, frankly, I didn't want to do the whole W-2 thing and you set aside money for benefits and just like the paperwork involved, frankly. I just didn't want to do that. And you could avoid a lot of that paperwork with contractors. But also, I found that the contractors that if I searched them out, now here's what I don't do. I know I'm weird here. I'm a little different than others. I don't like write up a job description and go post it on Upwork and Fiverr and wait for like 100 responses to come in and filter down. I don't do that at all because I know what I'm looking for. So when I go to hire somebody new, I literally go to sites like Upwork and I comb through. And I look for profiles, and I look for the right combination of profile and like education and the way that their profile is written. And I actually search people out. And to be sure, I want to say like 3 duds over the years of people who like, they ghosted me after 2 weeks of working together or something like that. But this current team has been working together for about 2 years now, consistently. And what I've done, and Basecamp allows this, I have tried to build as much of a W-2 feeling remote environment as possible. I promise you, even though they're all contractors, everybody on my team feels like they're part of my team. I give them Christmas bonuses. I can speak to them about even culturally relevant things where they are. If they're trying to take cover from a typhoon or something, we're praying for their family. We've created as much of a W-2 environment as you possibly can with overseas contractors, and I have to give a lot of the credit for that to Basecamp. So it's been a great decision, and I spend way less money per month than a lot of other people do on local contractors, and I'm a fan of local. It's just not the culture that I necessarily wanted in my business, so I didn't create it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, another smart thing about what you're doing is you're reducing your overhead a ton. So when you don't have as much work, you're not paying people full time to do to not work. So that decreases a ton of risk on your side. So it's awesome because you have recurring revenue, which decreases risk, and you have the contractors, which decrease risk. So, I mean, I think that's brilliant. It makes a ton of sense.
Thank you.
So jumping back a little bit into some of the details on the pricing side, I'd be curious. So one of my thoughts, what I was thinking about doing is having a couple different packages. I noticed on I think the site that I looked at, I didn't see any prices listed, but I did see packages listed, which I thought was a cool idea. Just to be like, hey, here's some different, potential package options. What I was going to do is have a pretty standard starting package price, and then have it include up to 15 pages for like the starter package, right? And then if you want an additional 5 pages, that's extra $100 a month for each additional 5-page pack. So my thought was like, hey, I'm not planning to upsell extra hours. I was going to make unlimited changes, but if you request additional stuff, or if I come up with an idea for, hey, we should have this new section, let's build out some SEO landing pages or whatever it is, that is going to naturally increase your subscription if your site gets larger. So I'm just curious your thoughts on that, experience with that. It sounds like you might be doing almost more like value-based subscription, where you're like, oh, how valuable is this website to this company? I mean, you could argue with that. I'm not sure if that's your approach, but what's your thought on that strategy? And then what do you do?
Okay, so yeah, the way that we've done this. So that's one of the methods that I teach, is doing, value-based subscription web design. I think you could totally do that. Historically, what we've done is not displayed pricing on the website, but sort of had, fairly standard-ish packages on the back end. And then if their specific requirements had something further, we would actually put a setup fee on the front end, right? So for more complex websites like membership sites or whatever, we'll typically have a setup fee on the front. And that helps cover some of my costs, reduce some of that risk, because those are more intensive sites on the very beginning. You didn't ask this, but related to this is I never want to be beyond 3 months to be profitable on a website. So I'm okay if I am profitable by month 4 at the very latest. I would prefer to be profitable sooner than that. So, the setup fees, initiation fee, whatever you want to call it, that sort of helps out on the front end. Now, one of the dangers of doing what I do is like, I'll have content that I put out like a year and a half ago that says, hey, do this. And then somebody will go to my website and say, oh, but you're doing this. So like, are you lying or what? And no, I'm just always testing, right? You have to test new ideas. And unfortunately, I'm the guinea pig, here I am.
Totally. Keep trying stuff. Yeah, 100%.
Right. And so right now on the Skyview site, literally just last week, we changed this over, and I am displaying pricing now and trying to make the packages more clear. Because one of the advantages I feel like, and this might be useful information for you, one of the advantages to the subscription model is that we can actually be less mysterious about the pricing. I mean, as well as I do, web design pricing is often very mysterious. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what is this going to cost?
All over the place, like insane.
All over the place. And the expectations are wild. You might be charging $5,000 for a website, and the customer's like, oh gosh, I thought this was going to cost like $500. I'll just have my niece do it,
Yeah.
That happens all the time. And so you run the risk of like putting the price out there, and that deters some customers. But like, doesn't that deter the right customers? Like, doesn't that send away the people that you want it to send away? That's my bet. And so I'm experimenting with displaying the pricing and streamlining the packages, so that it's like it's not so picky and choosy. It's more like, no, this is what you get for this package, kind of thing.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. One of my other thoughts was like, so I'll just tell you like what numbers I'm working with in case maybe you'll have some thoughts on it. But so like I have 3 different levels right now. I have, I don't have great names for them yet, but it's like Site Club Mini, which is like, it's like the mini smallest version, $240 a month. And it's a 1-page website. Everything's included. Yeah. $240 a month. Then my Pro plan, it's so Site Club Pro. It's like, $480 a month. And that includes up to 15 pages on your site. So it's kind of like the main option I expect most business owners to go for is the $480 a month one. And then I have the next one is like, I think it's Max. I'm just ripping off Apple basically, Mini, Pro, and Max.
Love it.
But then it's like, so got the Max one is like I think it's $960 a month. So it's like double the Pro one. And that one, I forget all the differences without off the top of my head. I have it on the draft of my site. But that one's like, hey, I think you start with like 20 or 30 pages, and then it includes a few extra perks. I think I included like the quarterly strategy call with that one and a couple other things. I'm like, oh, this is probably a bigger website or whatever. So that's like the general pricing I was looking at. And then basically you could buy the, the Pro plan, but add on page packs if you want to. And so that's part of my pricing. My other thought was like, I would want to have maybe some one-time brand add-ons. I was like, oh, like branding, I forget what I called them, but it's like things like, hey, if you want to also, after build your site, I order you business cards or a presentation, like, oh, these are all from a menu, you can just order them, and you help increase my cash flow a little bit as a bonus if somebody wants some extras, right? But then you have the page add-ons or an e-commerce subscription add-on. So things that require ongoing maintenance would still be subscription add-ons, but things that are more like one-time things actually designed for you would be like a one-off cost. Any thoughts on that or tips for me?
Yeah. So I think you're nailing it with the pricing. I mean, ultimately you have to experiment, and ultimately it's, there's going to be some factors like, where geographically, right? Where are they located?
Right.
Like for me,
Totally.
I find those prices would probably be a hair high for my geographic location in terms of the business that the arm of my business that is focused locally, right? Obviously, membership sites, those are a lot more expensive, but we can't talk for less than $850 a month on a membership site, because it's pretty expensive.
It's complex, yeah.
But yeah, so generally, I would say that you're right. A lot of people do it with the subscription thing. Have been doing the add-ons. I have been a little gun shy about that, and for no other reason than I lost a bid for two websites. They were e-commerce websites. Now, I quoted, over the life, I forget what the monthly number was, but like I quoted, it was a customer who wanted two websites. I quoted each website at $15,000. So, they were looking at $30,000 over 18 months. You know what? They could have afforded it. But they were being stingy about it. And so whatever, they didn't go for it.
Sure.
Well, one of the reasons that he said they didn't go for it is because I listed add-ons that I didn't even factor into those prices into the proposal. And they were like, oh, well, I've already got $15,000. Then by the time I add on these other things and I want those too, the price is going to go up even more. And so that has just like tainted me and made me gun shy against adding add-ons. I'll tell you what I would love to do though. And I think that, yeah, right. I mean, it does make sense, but it still sucks. So I need to get over it. But the Holy Grail. So I hate meetings, right? I mean, no joke. I use Basecamp. I mean, so that's like kind of the duh, right?
Yeah.
Like you only use Basecamp if you absolutely hate meetings.
Right.
And so I have like this swirly utopia vision in my head of clouds and dancing angels of actually having a website business where I don't have to talk to customers very often. I know that some people have figured this out. It's not that I'm against people. I'm just against meetings. I just hate meetings, And so, I'm thinking, okay, well, what about everything I learned from like Russell Brunson and like the sales funnel world? Like, man, is it possible? Could I actually have a page on my site where somebody comes and they click buy, and then it takes them to an upsell page and says, hey, do you want to actually like add on this brand package for 100? So I have this mystical vision in my head of a world where I could one day do that. My site is not currently set up to do that, but I think the add-on stuff is a perfect. It's like if you could introduce the add-ons not as something to confuse them on the same page, but like almost as an additional thing. I've decided I want the website. Oh, wait, now they're offering me the brand package. And I know that ticks customers off too sometimes. But, at least they've already made the decision to buy, so they're in that positive buying cycle.
Right.
I don't know. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I totally. And I kind of feel like, it would be good just to have maybe even after you start building the site or after it's like, oh, hey, here's some other options if you're curious or interested. So yeah, I love that. Yeah. I mean, I could ask you questions for hours, so we should probably wrap up. But man, I appreciate the transparency and the
Sure.
all the value and, I mean, hey, the free coaching that you've given us and to our audience. I really appreciate that.
Sure thing. I am 100% happy to chat anytime and really appreciate the invite, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, there's a lot of things that we could talk about and continue to talk about. So I'd love to have you back on the show. Maybe when you write your first book, then we can get you on and we can talk about it. I know you're working on one.
I am.
Well, hey, where can people connect with you if they want to hire you, if they want to learn more about your coaching and the other things that you're involved with? Where's the best place to get in contact with you?
Yeah, best place to get in contact, if you just go to steveschramm.co, that's got everything. And if you don't want to learn how to spell my name, just go to subscriptionwebdesign.com. That's got the stuff most relevant to what we talked about today.
Perfect. Awesome. Ben, what are your top takeaways for today's episode?
Man, I was like struggling to even take notes. I had so many questions. So there's a couple quick ones I wrote down towards the beginning that I thought were gold, and the rest are just like directly seeping into my brain. So one thing you said that stuck out to me, Steve, was like the idea of how can you make your sales pitch a story? And I think that's something that could apply to anyone is instead of using data, how can you think of an example or a story to make your point in a sales pitch? That's great. Something that resonated with me deeply is communication is one of the biggest problems in web design. 100% agree.
Yes.
I think that applies to a ton of industries. So think about your own industry, I'd say, and think about, is communication a big differentiator in your industry? I mean, I think of like home service contractors is another great example where you can stand out by being better at communicating. So those are a couple of my takeaways.
Awesome. And Steve, we like to leave everybody with one action item, so Monday morning they can hit the ground running and do something to improve themselves or their business. What is the one piece of advice that you would give somebody?
To look back on all you've accomplished so far and sit with it and be grateful for where you've come. Measure the gain in your life, not the gap for where you want to be, because that's a miserable downward spiral. Think about how far you've come and start from a fresh perspective.
Love it. Measure the gain, not the gap. Well, hey, thanks so much for tuning in and listening to The Friday Habit. If you go to thefridayhabit.com, you can find show notes for this episode. There you can also find ways to get in touch and links to our website. And at the bottom of the page, you can download our guide to the Friday Habit system that will show you how to set aside one full day each week dedicated to working on your business instead of always in your business.
Yep, and if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave us a review in the Apple Podcasts app, and shoot us an email at hello@thefridayhabit.com if you have any questions for us or any topics you'd like us to cover.
That's right. And until next time, live every day like it's Friday.